Can anybody hear me? I'm just looking at the comments, waiting for someone to say they can hear me. I'm hoping. Yay, sound great. Okay, hi guys, sorry about that. Sorry. You know what it's like, Friday afternoon, everyone's just a little bit exhausted. Oh, I'm getting lots of comments in. Yes, you can hear me. Fantastic. So welcome to my channel. This is Clinical Psychology Community UK, and tonight we're going to look at NHS Assistant Psychologist applications. We are also on Facebook and we're on Instagram, so check us out on there for some more helpful tips. And don't forget to click subscribe to the YouTube channel so you get notified of all the different things. I've got quite a lot planned, so make sure that you do. So currently I am an NHS Assistant Psychologist after 4 long years of trying, of applying and interviews and lots of work put into that. So hopefully I can impart a bit of wisdom on doing the applications and some lessons that I've learned in doing the applications. So if you have any questions at all, I can see the comments coming in. So if you have any questions, let me know. Feel free to interrupt. It's not a problem. But we do have a Q&A section coming up towards the end as well. Okay then, so let's get started. So tonight, my aims are we're going to look at what is an assistant psychologist, very brief overview of what that job entails. How do I become an AP? What is the application process for NHS Jobs? This is solely for NHS applications. Lots of the tips and tricks can be used for non-NHS applications as well, but this is just focused on NHS ones. The aftermath. So what happens after you've submitted your application? We're going to look at a little bit of stuff there. And some top tips, my absolute top tips for you if you are applying for your assistant psychologist positions. And then we'll have space for a Q&A afterwards. So let's begin. What is an assistant psychologist? Well, quite simply, it's a mental health professional who assists psychologists. I know, it's much easier than you think. So, variety of responsibilities. There are loads of different, as many roles and responsibilities as a clinical psychologist can have, same for an assistant. So you could be working with different client groups. You could be working with older adults, learning disabilities, working age adults, children, young people, all sorts of different services, community services, primary, secondary, tertiary care, inpatient, forensic, physical health, substance misuse, IAPT, loads of different services. And you could be a research assistant psychologist, so doing a little bit more clinical audit, service evaluation, or research, or you could be a clinical one, so working, you know, in clinical settings with client groups, or you could be a mix of both. So that's kind of my role at the moment, is very much a mix of both. So I've just finished a really big service audit, but I'm also starting to do a little bit more clinical work now that's over. So yeah, you can have a bit of both. And as clinical psychologists follow the framework: assessment, formulation, intervention, and evaluation. So do assistant psychologists. What you can kind of think an assistant psychologist as is a pre-training psychologist, if you like. It's very much a pre-training role. And you could be paid or you might be unpaid. So what you might see as honorary assistant psychologist. Now, this is quite a controversial thing in psychology at the moment. So if you're ever asked in an interview, for example, what are some current challenges facing psychology, the whole idea of asking someone to work for free is quite an issue. And actually, how accessible is that to everybody? If you can afford somehow to be able to work full-time for free, or a couple of days a week for free, then that's fantastic. That's great for you, but it's not very accessible for everyone else, is the issue. I definitely think that there are fewer of these available than when I was first applying. It seemed like almost every other job was for an honorary role. So try to get a paid role if we can, but as honorary roles can definitely help you get a paid role, as we will come on to. So why become an assistant psychologist? Why bother? Why go through all the hassle? Why? Well, it's useful experience for working in psychology, particularly clinical psychology or forensic or educational or whichever sort of aspect you're working in. It's useful for development towards the DCLIN Psy. So that is clinical psychology doctorate training to become a clinical psychologist in the UK. The award is a DCLIN Psy. However, it's not the golden ticket that it once was. I think that we're trying to be more expansive in clinical psychology. So not only people with assistant roles are getting onto the course. So don't stress yourself out. You can still apply for the course as long as you've got relevant experience, and you tick some of the boxes. Then there's no issues really. You still can apply. You don't have to have an AP job. And also, it confirms that psychology is a career that you want to pursue. And that's another reason why it kind of helps when applying for the doctorate, because you can say, yes, I've worked in clinical psychology. I know this is what I want to do. Your funding won't be wasted on me. So there are some reasons. So as I go through this, yes, this is focused on assistants, but remember that you can get onto the doctorate. You can become a psychologist without assistant experience. It's definitely not the be all and end all. How do I become an AP? The basics. Okay, these are the basic things that you will need near enough to meet to be able to become an assistant. You need to have a BPS accredited psychology undergraduate degree in most cases, or an unrelated degree and a master's conversion course usually. That is what you'll need, because that's a requirement to get onto the doctorate as well. It's something that you will need to have more often than not. And it needs to be BPS accredited because that gives you graduate basis for chartership, or GBC. That gives you the entitlement to be able to register with the BPS as a graduate psychologist, which is why you need to have that. The next thing is experience of working with mental health clients. This is, even on the most basic person specifications, I see this. They want you to have experience of working in some capacity with people with mental health issues, basically. It could be working in lots of different roles that we will come onto, but you will need some form of experience doing that, or in research. If the AP role is more in research, then some form of experience doing research would be really beneficial. And the other one is experience of working in the NHS. Because it's not uncommon for there to be over 100 applications for one assistant job. And unfortunately, we are all fairly evenly matched. We all have a good psychology degree more often than not. We've all got experience working with mental health clients, and more often than not, we've all got experience working in the NHS. So this is about making sure that you stand out. If you don't have experience working in the NHS, it depends. I just spent the last 2.5 years working outside of the NHS, but I was working in substance misuse. That was sort of a run by charity, and it was still it still had the same sort of values and the same clinical value as working in NHS services, and I was working with a really complex client group. So again, that aspect, working in the NHS, is not a be all and end all, but it certainly will help you. So when we come onto the roles, then you'll know what roles to look for within the NHS to kind of get a little bit of that experience. Alongside all of this, you are also going to need really good computer skills. This is basic stuff that I'm not going to put in there. You need to be able to use a computer really well, preferably Excel and all the office stuff. You need to have language proficiency. So if you're applying to roles in the UK, you need to have an English language proficiency. If you are an international applicant, that can become a little bit confusing. And because I'm not an international applicant, I don't know that process. So apologies if I'm not able to help you out with that. But the NHS website does have a lot of stuff, and I've got that linked later on. So language proficiency, yes, you will need an English language proficiency, or I work in Wales, so if I spoke Welsh, then that would be advantageous for applications. So consider where you're applying as well. Or any other language proficiency. For example, if you are in a place where there is where another language would be useful, for example, if speaking Urdu might be useful, then definitely pop that on your application, and make sure that you stand out with that, because that's really, really useful. As we know, a lot of people working in clinical psychology look like me and speak like me. and can only speak English, kind of like me. So the more diverse we can be helps us be more representative of the population that we're serving and help people better. And you also will need to be able to travel across the area more often than not. You'll be working across lots of different bases. You'll need to show that you can work independently, and you need to show that you have a desire to work in clinical psychology. So all of these things will be important, but the very, very basics, the building blocks are these things: BPS accredited psychology degree, experience of working with mental health clients, and experience of working in the NHS if you can. So what can you do to enhance your application? Well, the way that job adverts are set out is you have essential criteria. So the things that I've just spoken about, you have to have that to be able to be shortlisted. If you don't have those things, then chances are you're not going to be shortlisted, and you're not going to be able to get an AP role without some of that. Then you have desirable criteria. So a lot of the time they will say, we want postgraduate study. So we want you to have an MRes or MSc, so Master in Science, Master of Research. They might want you to have that. Again, definitely not a requirement. You don't have to have that, but it might help. Particularly, so with my role, I think me having a master's helped because it was about research. It's a band 5. So I think that was really helpful for me. But it depends on the role that you're applying for. And I think they understand not everybody is able to do a master's. The funding situation is not what it is for undergrad. As well, previous AP experience, massively helpful. I see this on so many job applications. And it stopped me from applying to those jobs for a while because I didn't have any AP experience. But I'd encourage you to still apply. Even if you don't have any AP experience. It really depends on the experience that you do have. For example, in my last role, I was a team leader in substance misuse. So that gave me quite a lot of skills in management, leadership, presentation, communication, that sort of stuff, service development, which was the key for this role currently. So yeah. But if you can get that honorary AP job or work as a bank assistant psychologist or do a placement, if you're still on your degree, then I would definitely do a placement. Then that will definitely help. Previous multidisciplinary team experience. So for anyone that doesn't know, multidisciplinary team is a team made up of lots of different disciplines. So you might have doctors, dietitians, physiotherapists, psychologists, nurses, health trainers, support workers, whatever it is. But they quite often want you to have a little bit of experience doing that. So if you can get any experience doing that, then that will definitely be helpful. And experience of supervision from a registered psychologist. Most mental health services will have a psychologist around, or there will be a psychology department in your health board or in your service somewhere. Try and get a little bit of supervision from them. Ask for it, because it is really helpful. It helps you think about things in different ways, and quite often they want to know that you have been supervised by a psychologist before. I say registered psychologist, doesn't have to be a clinical psychologist. Could be forensic, educational, health, whatever it is. That would be really beneficial. But there are lots of different things you can do to enhance your application, such as gaining more experience. So in terms of gaining experience, you can get paid roles, voluntary roles in charities, third sector, in universities, in NHS settings. Don't forget that universities are research facilities. Their main job is not actually to educate us like we think it is. It's actually to produce research. So there is research. There'll be so much research going on in your university psychology department or your local university psychology department. Contact them. See if they need any help. See if you can, do, I don't know, a morning a week or an afternoon a week. See if there's any paid opportunities for research assistants going, because that might help. Here is a range of different roles. There are so many different roles out there. I've just cherry picked a few that I'm aware of that are very, very common, but there are so many that you could do. So, for example, my experience is I had a year being an NHS support worker. in a weight management service, which was sort of helping people lose weight. So that gave me MDT experience, it gave me supervision experience, it gave me a little bit of research and development, because we started to develop a group with the psychologist. And then my next role was 8 months as a recovery worker in substance misuse. And then I was a senior recovery worker for 1 year, 5 months ish, before becoming an assistant. So that's my journey, but everybody has different ways, and it could be in different services. You might well, when I say wellbeing practitioner there, you might well know what I mean. So we usually know it as psychological wellbeing practitioner or a children's wellbeing practitioner, PWP or CWP. Essentially, these are people that have a qualification in it as a psychological wellbeing practitioner, usually a low intensity CBT qualification or certificate, which gives you really good clinical experience, good experience of managing caseload, being supervised. So that's a good way to go. As a research assistant, as I've said, talk to your universities because they will be doing research. Or you could maybe talk to whoever else is in your health board. The head of psychology might be looking to do some research and get published on it, which brings up the reputation of your psychology service and your health board. So basically, ask. If you don't ask, you don't get. So ask around, see what is around. Healthcare assistant. While this isn't a role that I've ever done, I know that it's definitely one that helps people start getting, one, NHS experience, and two, working collaboratively in a team, and lots of client work. So highly recommend that if you're just finishing your degree or you're looking to get a little bit of experience. Try and get one of those roles. Or support worker roles, so varied. You can be a support worker in housing, mental health, substance misuse, so many different ways that you can be a support worker. When I was doing my master's, I was a community support worker. So I used to take older adults out and just sort of accompany them really and provide a little bit of support. And with that, I gained report writing skills, supervision skills, clinical work, that sort of stuff. So there's value in every experience that you can get. And peer leader. So a peer leader is someone that is a peer who is leading. A peer leader is, so I was a peer leader in a body image intervention. I was also a research assistant tied in with this at university. So where I went to university, we had the Centre for Appearance Research. So they wanted to evaluate a body image intervention. So I was a peer leader delivering it to other female university students. And then as part of my research assistant, we were helping to contribute passages for publication, data analysis, data collection, all of that sort of stuff. So just ask around. You might well send off a lot of emails that don't get answered, or send a lot of letters that might not ever get answered, but just keep going because there's so much out there that you can do. Don't be disheartened, but we'll come on to that. There are lots of journeys to getting an assistant job, so don't feel like you're in the wrong, because you won't be. Whatever experience you've got will be helpful, because it's kind of like no publicity is good. All publicity is good publicity. It's kind of like that. All experience is helpful experience in some way. You can make it that way. So let's move on to how to use the NHS Jobs website. So this is how the current procedure is. If you're watching this in a few years' time, then it might be different, but this is what it is at the moment. You need to create an account on NHS Jobs. That's very easy. You need an email address. You can search jobs by location or by job title. So assistant psychologist, you could do it as. You click on each job to view the advert. There will be a job description, a job advert, a person specification, as well as the closing date and the interview date. All of the information that you need, and also who to contact, who is running the interviews. And an important thing to note is that NHS and non-NHS jobs are advertised on NHS Jobs. So it will say where the job is, which company the job is with. So just keep an eye on that. If you are going for NHS experience, then keep an eye on that. But as I say, there's value in lots of other ways of getting experience. So search for assistant psychologist and your preferred location. And yeah, as I say, all the information for each job. The main bits you want to look at are the job advert, the description, the job description, and the person specification. So how to apply for an AP job on NHS Jobs? Well, you click apply for this job. It's a little green button that's on the job advert. It will ask you these different domains. So you've got personal information, your basics, your name, your contact information, make sure that's right. Your qualifications, so you just simply put in when you graduated with what grade. If you're waiting, then you can put TBC to be confirmed, or you can say predicted first, or whatever it is that you're predicted, and the date that you're expecting that grade. Employment history. So this is one of the most important ones, so I will talk a little bit more about this in a minute. Referees, you need to put the 3 most recent referees down, and they tend to choose 2. Definitely the most recent one will be a reference. So if you are at early career and you're really struggling for references, you can put personal references down, but try and get... when I was first starting, used my one of my favourite school teachers to be an academic reference. But then when I graduated from my degree, I used my academic tutor, my dissertation tutor, to be my reference. And then every time I've got a job, they've then gone down as my reference. Supporting information, again, this is probably the most important bit on the application. So we're going to spend loads of time talking about this, but I'll come to that in a minute. Then you've got monitoring information. So this is things like equality and diversity, that sort of stuff that they need to put in there. Safeguarding information. So this is whether you've ever been subject to any fitness to practice investigations or anything like that, or any criminal history. Having a criminal history doesn't necessarily preclude you from getting one of these jobs, but obviously you will need to be able to pass a DBS check to be able to work with people, an enhanced DBS check that will be done if you are appointed the position. But be honest in your application is another very important thing. Be honest. So if you do have you do have a criminal history, or you do have some fitness to practice stuff going on, then put it on there and you can explain it in your supporting information. And then the declaration and submit. So declaration is just a tick box to say, yes, this is all correct and it's accurate. So the 2 most important things in there, all of it's important, don't get me wrong, but the bits where you're likely to spend most of your time are the employment history and the supporting information. So employment history then, it's a breakdown of your main duties. So what you will do is you'll put in what the role was, which service you were in, and the dates that you were there. And then there's a free text box for you to write in a breakdown of your main duties. So what you want to do is make it really clear. Use bullet points or numbers. So for example, this is one of my examples that I've got on mine, or very similar to it. Conducted psychological assessments using clinical interview techniques and psychometric measures. Delivered low intensity interventions based on CBT, or contributed to MDT case formulations and risk assessments. So there you're making it really clear what you did in that role. Try not to make it like a paragraph, and try to choose things that make sense for the job. So for example, this is one that I use when I'm applying. In fact, this is the one that I used for my current assistant role, because I knew that I was going to be doing low intensity CBT stuff and assessments, and I knew that I was going to be doing multidisciplinary team stuff. So I made sure that those bits were mentioned. I also did mention a little bit more, whatever your duties are, but this is just an example of that. But today we're going to focus on the person specification. So this is usually a PDF or a Word document that's attached either to the job description. It'll be, if you're looking at it, it'll be on the right-hand side when you're looking at the job advert, and then you download that. And how the person specification is split up. This is how they want the successful candidate, what they want the successful candidate to have. So they are looking at qualifications, experience, knowledge and skills, and some personal stuff, some miscellaneous personal stuff. Now, what you need to do is to match this in your supporting information. But to give you a brief example of what a person's specification looks like, I'll show you this. Now, it's usually a little bit longer than this, but I've cherry picked some of the most common ones. All of these have been taken from genuine NHS application person specifications, so you will probably see these. In qualifications, they want you to have a psychology undergraduate degree, at least a 2-1. They want you to have graduate basis for chartership, GBC, which is a BPS accredited degree. And they want you to potentially have any relevant postgraduate study if they ask for that. Sometimes they don't, sometimes they do. With experience, they might want you to have experience of working with mental health clients in the NHS. They might want you to have previous AP experience. And they might want you to have experience with that particular client group. So, for example, I'm currently working in primary care. And part of my role is working with older adults to try and improve access to our service for them. So experience with older adults was really key for me, I think, in getting that role. So they might want you to show that you have got that experience. Knowledge and skills. So they might want you to be able to communicate psychological information sensitively to a variety of stakeholders. So this could be, stakeholders basically means anyone that's got a stake in what's going on. So it could be the client, it could be their family, their carers, it could be managers, board directors, colleagues, anybody really. So they want to make sure that you can do that. Excellent IT skills I see this on every single application. Office, SPSS, that sort of thing, or Access, or Excel, or any of those sorts of things. Ability to manage own caseload, work independently and under supervision. They might want you to have that skill. And they might want you to have knowledge of psychological theory and its application to practice. Knowledge of the evidence base, just some understanding of the evidence base or the guidelines. Knowledge of issues facing the NHS and why you want to work in the NHS given these issues, and basic competence in research. Knowledge and skills tends to be the biggest part of the person specification, and they tend to have a lot of things in the essential criteria that a lot of people meet. So it's all about showing how you meet this specification. And in personal, it can be things like ability to travel locality wide. Usually that means drive a car. So if you have a license, it's, I usually put in, I've got a full, clean, valid UK driving license or something, and access to a car. So they know that, you can travel, because that's very common for assistant jobs. Emotional resilience. A lot of the time they want to know that you are able to manage your emotions and that you've got ways of protecting your own well-being. Whether that be raising concerns when you are feeling not okay, then they want you to have that a lot of the time, because a lot of work in mental health is really tough. So they want to make sure that you can handle it, basically. Ability to manage your own well-being, yeah, there you go. And enthusiasm for a career in clinical psychology. So that is an example. It's not what the person specification looks like. Sadly, they're not purple a lot of the time, which I think would make things a little bit better. But this is what you might see on a person spec. So this is what you need to match your supporting information to. So the supporting information is a free text box. It's a massive free text box, and you have some formatting stuff in there. So you can put things in bold, in italics, you can have things as a heading, you can do bullet points or numbers or whatever you want to do. But it's a free text box. And you need to show how you meet the person spec, and you need to address each criterion. So in the last bit, if we had excellent IT skills, then you need to address that and say, I am proficient in using Microsoft Office and have completed several bits of research using SPSS or something like that, or data analysis using SPSS, something like that. But it makes it really clear, so then they can tick that when they're shortlisting. They can look at the person spec and say, yep, tick, they've got that, moving on. It makes it easier for you to be shortlisted. This is probably my biggest tip. Make it easy for the recruiter. This was the biggest bit of advice that I ever got from somebody. So what I mean by this is break up the paragraph. Don't make it a big wall of words, because nobody wants to read that. That's really, really hard. You know what it's like if you're I don't know, if you're reading a paper and actually, or you're reading a handout, or you're reading anything and it's just one big block of words, that's too hard. And when you've got 100 applications to shortlist, they're not going to read it. That's the actual truth of it. As much of the time as we spend on these applications, they're not going to read it if they've got 100 to go through, as well as all the other issues that they've got going on to manage and the rest of their workload. So make it easy for them. This piece of advice came from someone who I sort of hounded to get a bit of feedback. When I finished my master's, I applied to over 150 assistant jobs and did not get any. I got shortlisted for a few and went for interview, but when I wasn't shortlisted for a job, I contacted the person, as I frequently did, and said, can you give me any feedback? I appreciate, time is limited and you can't give feedback to all 100 odd people that apply. But he did. He gave me 5 minutes and said, it's too difficult for me to give you the job because you make me work for the information. So make it easy for them. Have it in bullet points. Lay it out really clearly how you meet each criterion in the person spec. Otherwise, they're going to move on to someone else. And you've probably got all the experience and all the knowledge and all the skills that you need to get the job. So you need to sell yourself as best as you can. Make it easy for them. And some applications, some NHS trusts have little extra questions on that page as well underneath. So sometimes they have, what does the value safe mean to you? So then there's another free text box where you need to answer that. And I can't answer that for you because we all have different values and we all experience values differently. But basically make sure you answer all of those. And they might say, do have like a drop down list saying, have you got all of the relevant qualifications for this position, all of that sort of stuff. So make sure you put that in there. Make sure every bit of the person's spec you are matching. So let's give you a little example. This is not exhaustive, like there's lots more things that you can write, but this is an example. So how I do mine, I use headings. I have qualifications. I match the headings on the person's spec and I alter it each time. Once you've done this once though, lots of AP specifications are the same. So you have like one master version and then you just take out the bits and adapt it for the role that you're applying for. So qualifications. So I have BSc on psychology degree, first class, and my master's I popped in there as well. And I'm eligible for GBC and I put in there that I've got a BPS accredited degree. So when they are shortlisting, they can look at the person's spec and say tick, 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 done. Easy. And it's usually at the top of the person's spec, so match that with your supporting information. Put this at the top. If you didn't get GBC that way, you can say, or you could say something like graduate member of the BPS. So, for example, this is me, Division of Clinical Psychology, pre-qualified group, faculty for older people. So it sort of shows that you are interested in that client group, for example. That's another way that you can say that you've got GBC. But I would make it really clear. I would say eligible for GBC and then maybe put that you're a graduate member as well. You don't have to be a member of the BPS. You just have to be able to be a graduate member by having a BPS accredited degree. So that's the qualifications. That is how I recommend that you lay out your application. I definitely would recommend that because it just makes it so easy for people to read. Moving on then to experience, which tends to be the next section on the person's spec. Let's say the criterion was experience of working in the NHS with mental health clients. So I tend to then use bullet points or numbers, and I say, so this is might be how I write it out. It might be, or it might be a different way that, making it shorter. It really depends on what the person's spec says. But for this one, I've said NHS support worker. I put how long I was there for, supported the multidisciplinary team and clients in weight management service. How the clients presented, so I'm showing a little bit of my knowledge about that client group and about mental health problems. And what I did about that. So I facilitated psychoed sessions, individual sessions, and contributed to the MDT discussions. So you can put whatever is relevant, and make sure you put in things that you've actually done, because it is really obvious. I've read quite a lot of applications, and it's really obvious when someone's lying and they haven't actually done that, because they're not talking about it if they say, oh, I've done loads of risk assessments, so I can do risk assessments. Well, you're showing me, you're not telling me, and I don't believe you. So give me an example of a time that you've risk assessed, something like that. And then I might also put recovery worker, 8 months, supported clients with substance misuse issues, heroin and crack cocaine principally, in group and individual sessions. This role involved risk management, assessment, formulation, and intervention. As I say, you can broaden this out a little bit if you want to, or you can leave it as that, because somewhere else in the person's spec, it will say all the other things that they want you to do. But this gives you an idea of how I would set it out. So then the next experience criterion, so previous AP experience, you can say, I don't have previous AP experience. If you don't, then you can say, but my role as a support worker, I had clinical supervision from a psychologist, I delivered low intensity CBT interventions, or whatever it was. Make sure you're selling yourself and making the most out of your experience. Moving on to knowledge and skills. So again, like I said, I'd have a heading, knowledge and skills. Let's say the criterion is ability to manage own workload independently and under supervision. So I might say, right, as an NHS Assistant Psychologist for 9 months, I manage my workload independently, guided by frequent supervision of service procedures. For example, I reviewed the service action plan and I identified work allocated to the previous AP. I took this to supervision and a timeline of work was agreed. So what I'm doing there is I'm showing how I work independently and under supervision, because independently I reviewed the service action plan, I then took it to supervision and we agreed a timeline. So use an example, show them that you're doing that. Because anyone can say that, yeah, I'm really good at working independently. You need to show them somehow, find an experience. You could say, as a senior recovery worker, I designed organisational tools such as service-specific to-do lists and priority matrices to ensure my workload was managed effectively. These were reviewed in supervision, for example. So there's another example of how I meet that criteria. That's what you need to do. Look at the criteria, think about which bits of your experience match that the best, because you are limited on characters as well. So you need to make sure that you're working smart. Now, I hope that makes sense as to how to do your supporting information, because it is honestly quite often people will just skip to that. I know when I've been shortlisting for jobs in my previous role, I would just skip to the supporting information and look and say, right, well, they're not telling me anything here, so I'm going to cut them. And that definitely will happen if they've got hundreds to shortlist. So make it easy for them. Show them their person specification with you just inserted into it. Show them how you deserve that job. Now, the aftermath. Let's think a little bit. You press submit on the application. Yay, it's all exciting. Look after yourself. Well done, you did it. You've applied for a job. And I know you might be like, oh yeah, but I've got to apply for loads of jobs. It's nothing. Well, it is something actually, because you have to really reflect on your experiences and match it with the person's spec. There's a lot of work that goes into it. So congratulate yourself. If you've submitted, have a glass of wine in the evening if that's something you enjoy. Have a bath, go for a walk, do something where you can really say to yourself, well done, because you will need that. As I said, I applied for AP jobs for 4 years, and without saying to myself at some time, you've done well, I think I would have lost my mind. So make sure you look after yourself, do things that you enjoy doing, and remember, as much as clinical psychology is vocational, we often think of it as vocation, it's a job. At the end of the day, it is a job. So enjoy the other things that you've got in your life. Particularly this year, I think we just need to value lots of things that we've got that are positive. Once you've had a little bit of a rest and a relax, I would 100% advise you to reflect on the interview reflect on the application prior to receiving any feedback. Really think about what went right with the application. What would you change? Are you happy with it? What do you think they're going to say? Maybe look at your application once you've submitted it, even after you've had a break and a rest from it, and go through the person's spec and say, oh, I didn't quite hit that criteria. Okay, didn't quite hit that. Well, now I know what I can do next time, prior to receiving any feedback. Because then when you do receive feedback, hopefully, you can compare it and you can see how on track you are. So definitely would advise that. What will happen then is there's a separate website called NHS Track Jobs. So once you've applied, sometime in the next couple of weeks, your job will be imported to NHS Track Jobs. And this is really annoying because you get emails that say, oh, it's been imported. But actually you just think, oh, I've got an NHS Jobs email. That means I must have an interview. Oh, no. They've just imported it to a different website. So usually lots of different things, updates, interviews, things like that are done through NHS Track Jobs. So keep an eye on that. And also check your emails. Make sure that your email address is correct. Check your emails because that's usually how they do it. Sometimes they text, like we have sent an invitation to interview, but more often than not they email. And ask for feedback regardless of the outcome. Regardless of whether you get shortlisted for interview or not, try and ask for feedback. I know that's really hard because, like I said, they might have shortlisted 100 people down to 10 for interview. They don't really want to spend all that time talking to 90 people. But I definitely would recommend it. That's how I learned most of my things about AP applications, is from talking to people who didn't shortlist me. So highly recommend. Now we come on to some top tips. These are probably my biggest lessons. And if you are going to remember one thing from this webinar, make it easy for the recruiters. Bullet points, headings, make it clear. Make it easy for them. What you want is for them to look at your application and say, I can't not give them an interview. They're perfect. So make sure you make it easy for them. I would also suggest copying your supporting information, just copying and pasting it. So copying it into Word, because then it will come up with grammar and spelling checks, because that does not happen on the supporting information free text box. It does not check your spelling. So make sure you copy it into Word because there might be things that you've not picked up on. So that'll help. As well, apply for jobs that you're qualified for. If you do not have any experience, so like I didn't, I left university and had virtually no experience, no meaningful experience, i.e. no full-time experience. I was applying for jobs like Band 5, which is the top for an assistant, Band 5 senior assistant jobs, which needed management experience. I was never going to get those jobs. So don't apply for those. Make sure you are realistic with it, and apply for the jobs that you're qualified for. Apply for the jobs that match your experience. I know sometimes it can feel a bit, oh, there's another assistant job, I've got to apply for it. But just apply for actually what suits you, because the more you can narrow down the rejection, the best, because there is quite a lot of rejection going on when you're trying to become an assistant. I would also highly recommend keeping track of the jobs that you apply for. Get yourself a little table, make yourself a table or a spreadsheet, keep a track of the jobs that you apply for and the feedback you receive from them. Use a feedback log, because then it can help you. You can look at that and say, right, well, the last time I got feedback, they told me that my qualifications weren't clear enough, so I need to make that clearer in my next application. Definitely do that. Highly recommend. Look after yourself. As I've said, I don't need to labour the point anymore. Look after yourself and be realistic. What I mean by this is, do not internalize the lack of success to mean that you're a failure, because you're not. It's just there are hundreds of other versions of you that are going for the same job. And I think it's really important to learn that lesson the nice way, rather than feel like rubbish for a long time and then realise actually there are so many people and we're so evenly matched. Request feedback, because how else are you going to learn? Or you can get other people to look at your application as well. Show, not tell. As I've said, don't tell them that you're able to use supervision. Show them an example. Show them where you were stuck with a client, so you took it to supervision and therefore you learned a different way to think about the situation and there was a successful outcome. Use examples as much as you can. Don't abbreviate. NHS is pretty much the only acceptable abbreviation because everyone knows what that means. If you are going to abbreviate, you can, but make sure that you spell it out first and then in brackets put what the abbreviation is. So multidisciplinary team, in brackets MDT. And then every time you use MDT afterwards, you can write MDT. But make sure you don't just abbreviate just to save characters. Don't do that because they don't like that. It's not the appropriate way, because what they're testing with the supporting information is your ability to write. And so if you were to get the job and write a report or write a letter, how would your writing style work? If you're using lots of abbreviations or your spelling and grammar is wrong, you're not going to get the job because you're not. Because, you know, you need to be able to do those things or show that you can do them because it's just so ultra competitive. So don't give them an excuse by spelling something wrong or abbreviating without explaining. Make sure your contact information is correct, because you might be sitting there going, oh, I'm not getting any job interviews. Well, actually you are. Your email address is wrong. So those are my ultimate top 10 tips. But if you are going to remember one thing, make it easy for the recruiter. That is my main thing to tell you. Okay, so we've come to the Q&A section, and I did actually have 3 questions come in, so I'll go through those. But if anyone's got any questions, pop them in the chat right now. That's absolutely fine. So the first one is, how long does it take to hear back from an application? How long is a piece of string? It really varies. I mean, the closing date will be on the advert. Usually, I mean, I would say in my experience, it's between 2 and 3 weeks after the closing date. But in some cases, it's been a couple of months. It really depends. But if you haven't heard, you can chase it up. You know, if it's been a month or 2 months, 2 months probably, then yeah, you chase it up. Definitely, I would highly recommend that. Question 2 is, what is an informal call and should I do one? This is another piece of advice that I received from when I was unsuccessful. The person that got the job did an informal call. So what that is calling up the person that's, or contacting by email or phone the person that is responsible for the job, the person that will be interviewing you. So you can ring up and say, oh, hiya, I've just got some questions. If it's okay, I've applied for this job. Can you tell me a little bit more about it before I submit my application, or anything like that? And what you're kind of doing is letting them know who you are. More often than not, it's helpful to do that when you have been offered an interview, but you can definitely do it when you're writing an application. Or you could say, I've just submitted my application. I'm really looking forward to hearing back. I just want to have a little chat about what the service is about, that sort of stuff. Definitely, I would advise you to do one, yeah, because you're looking for any way where you can stand out from the 100 other people that are applying that are evenly matched. So yeah, I'd recommend it. And the third question, thank you so much for sending in your questions, guys. I'm going to do question 3 and then I'll get to yours. Why do I need to put my qualifications in the supporting information? It's already in the application. Correct. You already put your qualifications in, yes. But you are matching the person's spec in the supporting information. That's why it's important, because it's on the top of the person's specification. It's the basic. So you need to put that in your supporting information. Basic. That's why. That's what I would say. You achieved your degree. You did your degree. Make sure it's in there. We've got into lots of debt getting our degrees. So make sure it's in there. You need to show that it's there. I hope that helps. So thank you so much for all of the questions, guys. So the first one is, what are the benefits of becoming a graduate member of the BPS? So I'm a little bit biased. So I sit on the pre-qualified group committee as the Wales representative at the moment. The BPS can be quite controversial. I think some people think that it is a lot of money for some people and with little benefit. For me, I can only speak to my experience. Being a graduate member of the BPS, up to 5 years after you graduated with your undergraduate, it's half price. So it's £62 for a year. I think it's about that. I think that's worth it, personally. You get a monthly magazine called The Psychologist. I've got some here, actually. Yeah, can get all of these monthly magazines. There are so many events, ridiculous amount of events going on. I mean, in the last month, I would say that I've probably attended 10 free BPS events, covering webinars on racism, workshops on how to use your voice and be in leadership roles. Pre-qualified webinars are great because they help you with, doctorate application, for example. And there's things like the Research Digest that you can sign up to. There's loads and loads out there. So I definitely reckon it's worth being a member. I graduated 5 years ago, so next year when I renew, it's going to be double. So we'll see then. But no, I definitely do think that it's worth it. But for fairness, there is also the Association of Clinical Psychologists, the ACP, that you can have a look at. I think it's about £50 for a year, and they do lots of events and things like that. But another benefit for the BPS, I think, particularly if you're going for clinical psychology, I mean, I can only speak for clinical because that's the division that I'm part of. They have lots of networking. They have lots of different faculties. They're really encouraging for you to get involved. So, like I said, I'm sitting on the pre-qualified group committee, and because of that, I also sit on the Wales committee as a pre-qualified representative. You have opportunities to do writing, loads of stuff. I would highly recommend. Have a little look. What's out there, but I'd recommend it. They've also got a really good YouTube channel, guys. Loads of webinars are on there. So have a look at the British Psychological Society, BPS, YouTube channel. Oh, thank you. That's a really lovely comment. Thank you. I'm really glad people have found this helpful, because I wish I had this when I was applying for AP jobs. I don't think it would have taken me 4 years if I'd had this advice. So what do I recommend if someone doesn't have any clinical experience yet? Okay. Firstly, reflect on the experiences that you do have. So there will be experiences that you have that are valuable. I'd also think about what you're interested in. Do you want to do a bit more research? Or are you interested in research? Or do you want to work with people? What people do you want to work with? What issues do you want to work with? Do you want to work in a community setting or an inpatient setting? Really think about what it is that you want to do as well. If you don't have any clinical experience, kind of like I mentioned with the gaining experience bit, there's lots of opportunities out there. I mean, if you don't mind saying, are you at university at the moment? Or, what is your current situation? If you're at university, go and get some research experience, because that will help you, because you can work in clinical populations doing some research sometimes, so that can be helpful. If you're at university, doing volunteering can be really, really helpful. So I volunteered as, I can't remember what the title was now. I think it was a peer group facilitator for a local mental health charity. And we developed a resilience lab, we called it, resilience group, for 18 to 25-year-olds. That was all voluntary. It was one evening a week, I think. But it gave me some experience delivering interventions to the community. There's loads of community enterprises out there, so you can get involved in some of them. I'd also recommend, I don't know if anyone's heard of this, but Psychologists for Social Change. Have a look at their website. Definitely recommend. They've got loads of opportunities as well, to help you get out there and signposting to different services that are out there. There's more information about that actually in this book, which I hope you can see. Definitely recommend this book if you have not seen it before. It's Surviving Clinical Psychology, and it's edited by James Randall. It's like my Bible at the moment, so yeah, absolutely have a look at that. And it's got loads of other tips and suggestions in there. So I hope that kind of helps. If you don't have any clinical experience yet, go and get some clinical experience. Talk to local hospitals, local services, charities, loads of other things. Find out if you can go and help in some way. I would. Or if there's a need in your community. What does your community need? If there are lots of lonely older adults, can you set up a befriending service? Can you go and work at a local helpline? So lots of people do Samaritan sort of stuff, which is not necessarily like a clinical intervention. It's more like a listening service, but it kind of gives you a little bit of experience working with people who are quite distressed, and it will give you skills in managing your own emotions and things. So have a look at volunteering stuff, definitely, or bank stuff, yeah, there's so much out there. Just have a little look. I've been asked how old I am. Well, I am in my last few days of being 26. I kind of actually wish I'd said, guess how old I am, but then I'd get lots of horrible numbers, I expect. So yeah, I'm about to turn 27 on Sunday. I went to university at age 18, so graduated. Oh, got to do maths now. I was 21. Yes, it was 20 or 21 when I finished. 21, 20, yeah. And then I was 22 when I started, just about to turn 22 when I first started working full time. So yeah, I hope that helps. And can I give you a brief timeline of my career path and how I got to where I am now? Yeah, so as I said, that was my university. Went to university age 18, finished at 20, 21, then went on to do a master's straight away, partly because I couldn't face going into the real world, and also I had the opportunity to go and do a master's, which I'm really glad that I did. I did my master's up in Newcastle, which is great. So sort of seeing a very different population to the Southwest, which is where I grew up and where I went to university. And then I became an NHS support worker for a year in weight management, which I loved. It was just such a lovely job. Unfortunately, it was too far away from my family, and I needed to be near them. So I moved back down south, and then I was a drug and alcohol worker, recovery worker for 8 months. Then I was a senior recovery worker for a year and 5 months, and then I'm an assistant psychologist currently. But I think the main things that helped me progress are support from everybody around me. My friends, my family, my fiance, they believe in me, and that's really lovely. Get yourself a support network around you somehow of people that are supportive. There are loads of us watching today. That's so great. Thank you so much for watching. Part of why I want to do these things is to help build a community of people that are helping. It's such a competitive field, and a lot of interactions with other people that are going for the same things as you are is kind of tinged with a little bit of competitiveness, and it's very wearing. So get a support network. I would also say that working too hard genuinely was an issue. Like, I was at burnout when I left my last job. So going through lots of that kind of helped toughen me up. But what actually helped was doing lots of reflection. Keeping a reflective portfolio is my biggest tip. It's something I started in this NHS assistant role, and under the guidance of my supervisor, and oh my goodness, it's the best thing I've ever done. So this is my reflective portfolio. This is what it looks like, but I've also got it digitally, and it helps me think about experiences in different ways and using different reflective models. If you're interested, I've got lots of videos on my channel about reflective models. I did one yesterday on Gibbs and Brookfield, those two different models. So those are my biggest tips. Reflect on your experience and use supervision if you can. Lovely, thank you guys. So another one regarding honorary assistant psychologist roles, to whom would you write to? Like randomly clinical psychologists, or call a specific department? Yeah, so you could, lots of services are chronically underfunded, so they probably will ask for volunteers wherever they'll accept volunteers. So when I was looking to move back down south from being a support worker in weight management, I contacted different weight management services across the Southwest and asked them if they needed any assistant psychologists or, any input, any research assistants or anything. It was invariably met with no thank you. But that sort of thing helped. So what I would start by doing is reflecting on what experience you have and what experience you'd like to get, or which population you'd like to work with, what issues would you like to work with. So I always wanted to work with eating disorders, still do, but I've just not had the opportunities to do that. So for example, I would then write to an eating disorder service, a local eating disorder service, or my local BEAT office, which BEAT is the eating disorder, the most famous eating disorder charity. And write to them and just say, hi, this is my experience. I'm really looking to get a little bit more experience. Can you help? But kind of make it an attractive offer for them. You can say, I can, set out the hours that you can do, set out the support that you'll need, that sort of stuff. I hope that helps in some way. Thanks for the happy birthday message, guys. Thanks. I'm not at all freaking out. I just feel like 27 is like a proper adult, isn't it, really? 26 kind of is your mid-20s, but I'm now going into my late 20s and it's a bit terrifying. Thanks, guys. Well, see, in Wales we're not in lockdown, so it's actually pretty good here. I'm living my best life. So if there's no more questions, thank you so much for everyone that engaged with the questions, and I hope that helps. In summary, NHS Jobs is the best website to find NHS positions, unsurprisingly. Jobs like support worker and healthcare assistant really strengthen your assistant application. But things like getting supervision from a psychologist in whichever role that you're in is also really, really helpful. So the main things that you want to look for is client-facing work and supervision with a psychologist, and preferably NHS if you're going for NHS, but you don't have to. And match the person's specification in your supporting information. Make it easy for the recruiters. If you remember one thing, just remember that. Make it easy for them. Make it easy for them to give you the job, because they're going to make it easy to shred your application. It's very easy for them to do that, so make it hard for them to throw your application away. And I just want to talk to you a little bit about some upcoming webinars. So as voted for by the wonderful group members on Facebook, it's a live Q&A session, and that's going to be on Thursday the 17th of December at 6 p.m. again UK time, and it'll be another live stream. If you've got any questions, then let me know. You can let me know in the comments, and I'll add them to the live Q&A. But join me. You can ask me anything, basically. Anything particularly about professional stuff and about clinical psychology, but you can ask me anything. And then in January, we are back to looking at 2 reflective models. We're going to look at Kolb and Atkins and Murphy. What other videos do you want to see? What else do you want to know? Comment below. Let me know in the chat or in the comments what sort of videos you'd like, and I will work on them. I can work on assistant interviews, some tips for that, doctorate interviews, doctorate applications. Just let me know what you want to see. And sorry, I've just got another little comment. Considering a social worker role to have more experience in mental health. Okay, so to work as a social worker, you need a social work degree. Just bear that in mind. But yeah, working as a social work support worker or something like that is really helpful. Gives you really good knowledge of safeguarding procedures, working with kids, that sort of stuff. So yeah. How to get involved? We're on all the social medias. Follow us at Clinical Psychology Community UK. Give us a follow. Give us a subscribe as well, and you can keep in touch. I'm going to post lots of videos that aren't live streams, so if you click subscribe, you'll get notified when there's a new video. So make sure you subscribe. And here's some references and helpful resources. Basically, the NHS websites and a couple of Facebook groups. There's Assistant Psychologists UK. Dash Psychology. That's a Facebook group with like 10,000 people on it. Lots of different tips and tricks for getting assistant jobs. And there's an Assistant Psychologist Wales one that I've set up. So if you are in Wales and aspiring to be an assistant psychologist, or you're a current AP, then let us know and you can join that one. So that's how you can search. Thank you so much for joining us. I really, really appreciate you guys watching this, spending your Friday evening with me, although I know that lots of you might be in lockdown, so I appreciate but I appreciate very much that you're spending time with me here doing this, so thank you so much. And if you're watching the record, click on the videos below for any more information. Thank you so much, guys, and I will see you next time. See you later.